Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Garage Game Day Sports Podcast. My name is Louie. I am your host. We are doing a special weekend mailbag episode, the first ever time I do this, so bear with me. Anything NFL related, anything college football related. We've taken to social media. We asked for feedback. We asked for questions. We will do our best to answer each and every one of the questions y'all put out there. If there's any that come in on, as we're rolling, we'll do our best to answer those as well. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel here on YouTube, Garage Game Day Sports. Follow us on Twitter /X. We're on Facebook. Wherever you get your podcasts, feel free to give us a listen. Shout us out. Leave us any and all feedback. It is appreciated. We love football. We hope you guys do the same. You will help grow our community, help grow our channel, and hopefully maybe one day make a living off of this sort of thing. So we appreciate any and all support. We'll go ahead and get started with the first question in our mailbag. We've had a few come in already. First, from Craft Beers and Sports. Appreciate the love and support, y'all. Really love what they're doing on Twitter. They ask, who is our pick to win the Pac-12? I like, and this solidified my pick from yesterday's events, from yesterday's effort by USC. I'm going with the Washington Huskies. In my previous episode, I had the Washington Huskies make the college football playoff as a one-loss Pac-12 champ team. And yesterday, I know it was just one game, and I know it was San Jose State. They are a talented team, and Siobhan Cordero and Nick Nash gave them plenty of problems yesterday. They hung around for a while. For a Mountain West top 3, top 4 type team, this was concerning if you're USC. Still the tackling problems, still the defensive problems. Giving up the big plays. They were gashed last year, so I think I would trust Washington's defense just a little bit more. And I know USC brought some big-time transfers in, and you've still got that potent offense. We saw Dorian Singer make some plays yesterday. Zachariah Branch really broke out on his own last night, the freshman. And you still have Caleb Williams, the Heisman Trophy winner, hoping to go back-to-back. But I really love Michael Penix. I love Kalen DeBoer and that wide receiving core headlined by Roma Dunze, Jalen McMillan. I just like what Washington's doing. I think they're the more complete team. I don't have quite as many concerns on defense. There are some for the Huskies. But I don't know. I just feel like there's glaring issues with USC's defense, and I don't know if it gets rectified. I know looking at the schedule coming up, you've got a lot of winnable games. You host Nevada, you host Stanford, you go to Arizona State, at Colorado. You've got a lot of winnable games on the schedule. But then it picks up, and it picks up in a big way. You have an early bye between the Stanford and the Arizona State games. But I want to read you the last 6 games of their schedule. They go to South Bend against Notre Dame. They host Utah. They go to Cal. That should probably be a win, but Cal gave them some trouble last year, so not totally a guarantee. But the one easy one out of the schedule. They host Washington. They go to Oregon, and they host UCLA to end the season. I could see somewhat of a body blow theory here and see them very fatigued. We saw how they were when Caleb Williams was hurt last year, banged up. And I think if that defense is not shored up by then, they've got 6 weeks to figure it out. But if it's not shored up by then, you're facing a lot of talented teams with a good offense, a good defense. And I just can't trust USC, Lincoln Riley especially, his offensive-minded teams. And the fact that they always have glaring weaknesses on the defensive side of the ball. You're talking Notre Dame. We saw what Sam Hartman did yesterday. They looked really good. Utah with Cam Rising. Washington with Michael Penix. Having to travel to Eugene to take on Bo Nix in Oregon. And then we don't know what UCLA is quite going to be like, but they're going to have a whole season to figure it out when USC faces them in the finale. That's just a lot of uncertainty for me right now. I just like Washington a little bit better. So I say the Washington Huskies take the Pac-12. Not only that, they book a spot in the college football playoff. So they are my favorites to win the Pac-12. Another question comes in from a Pops. Shout out, Luis, my dad. What do you think of the Trey Lance acquisition for the Dallas Cowboys? I like it. You're giving up a 4th rounder. So what? The 49ers have already committed to Brock Purdy, and they like Sam Darnold enough to have him be the backup. And I know, of course, the Cowboys bashers and Cowboys haters, Trey Lance coming for Dak Prescott's job. Oh, no, we saw Dak did a heck of a job coaching last night. Maybe he had a coach instead of play quarterback. Come on, people. Trey Lance couldn't beat Sam Darnold out for the backup job. He is not dethroning Dak Prescott. Okay, let's get that straight. He is the 3rd-string quarterback for now. The Cowboys already told Will Greer that they were going to move on from him and release him after last night's game, which, shout out, by the way, Dak Prescott, offensive coordinator. If he called that game, he called it beautifully. Will Greer shined, 4 total touchdowns. I'm sure made an impression on several teams, so there's no doubt in my mind. Greer, whether it's practice squad, backup quarterback, QB3, I'm sure Will Greer will find himself a job in short order. I am not worried about that. But Trey Lance will be the QB3 for now. We'll see if he can jump Cooper Rush for the backup job. The kid's only 23 years old, okay? He's only had 4 games of experience, and the 49ers had a really tight leash because we know the hellacious defense they have. We know the playmakers they have on offense. We know Deebo Samuel. We know Christian McCaffrey. We know George Kittle. They had a very short window, and it's still open right now, to get the best quarterback that they can have right now. And right now, their best quarterback, their best shot at making a Super Bowl and winning a Super Bowl is Brock Purdy. So they move on from Trey Lance. The Cowboys can pick him up. He's only 23, like I said, several years. I'm not sure, 6, 7 years younger than Dak possibly. So maybe down the line he could be the successor. If and when Dak calls it a career, maybe he's your next Cowboys quarterback. Maybe he's a plug-and-play QB2 if Prescott goes down again, which we know Dak has some sort of history, not totally made of glass, but gets nagging injuries and gets banged up from time to time to where he misses a couple games here and there, and you need someone to fill in, which Cooper Rush has done an outstanding job doing that. But it's very interesting to see what Trey Lance is and could become for the Cowboys. Like I said, it was just a 4th-round pick, so in my opinion, hey, it's worth it. And I'm really curious to see what he can do for the Cowboys, especially given the talent around the Cowboys, the defense, and the playmakers around him. He may have more of an opportunity in the future. It may be a sit and learn behind Dak Prescott for a couple years, and just playing sparingly. But we've seen how that worked out, with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. We'll see what Jordan Love can do with the Packers sitting behind Rodgers for a couple of seasons. So we'll see if maybe he's in the right system and the right team now to maybe help him thrive. So I'm definitely interested in how that situation plays out. Back to Twitter. Drew Webb, one of my boys on Facebook, always communicating with this guy. Good dude. Who are the dark horses of each division? Now, I'm guessing he means NFL, instead of conferences of college football. So my dark horses for each division. We'll start in the AFC. The dark horse in the AFC, like if you're going to AFC East, okay, well the Bills won it last year. They've won it the past 2 seasons. You've got the Dolphins and Jets that looks just so strong right now. And given that we haven't really seen the Jets succeed early, I know it seems like kind of a cop-out, but how loaded this division is, it's hard to really pick any one team to be a winner outside of the Patriots. And even the Patriots really could have a chance with Bill Belichick and see how Mac Jones goes. But my dark horse for the AFC East, it feels like a cop-out, but I got to go to New York Jets. With Aaron Rodgers, you bring in Dalvin Cook, and you still have Sauce Gardner on defense, and Quinnen Williams, and you have Garrett Wilson. You have all the recipe around Aaron Rodgers. This feels like a LA Rams type situation where all you need is the quarterback. They brought in Matthew Stafford, and all the pieces were around him. He had all the skill positions, all the players around him. They made it work. They made a Super Bowl run, but then after that, they fell off the face of the earth. And now they're in a rebuilding mode. This kind of feels like the Jets with Aaron Rodgers last, couple years were in the twilight of his career. And if they can find a quarterback, or if Rodgers can mold Zach Wilson, you don't totally have a Rams situation because you wouldn't be in a full rebuilding mode because a lot of the Jets' best players are young. Garrett Wilson. And Dalvin Cook's not too old, and you Sauce Gardner and those kind of guys. So it has the possibility of being a Rams type situation where they go all in or bust the next 2 years and then they fall off a cliff. But they have a young team around them. So I really like the Jets, my dark horse of the AFC East. Dark horse of the North, to me, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Kenny Pickett balled out to end the year last year. Mike Tomlin constantly has this team in and around 500, no matter who you have at quarterback, no matter how the team looks, how decimated they could be from injuries. He always has this team in contention, or at least the last few weeks, they're still in contention. Kenny Pickett had himself a really nice preseason. He's building the rapport with George Pickens. You still have Najee Harris. You still have a stout defense. So I like the Steelers to maybe make moves. I mean, you don't know how long Joe Burrow's going to actually be out with that calf. And with the Ravens, you don't know Lamar Jackson, how he's going to gel with Todd Monken running the offense now. Zay Flowers and OBJ, as they're more of a throwing team, more of a vertical threat team, you don't know if that's going to take time. So that could be the perfect recipe for Pittsburgh to just sneak in there and take the North. So I got to go Steelers in the North. The South, it feels like the Jaguars are just going to have a stranglehold on this division. If I had to pick anyone else, I mean, it'd have to be the Titans. You bring in, DeAndre Hopkins, Derrick Henry, and then Ryan Tannehill, who may or may not be your quarterback to end the year, or next year. Got Will Levis waiting in the wings. And if Levis comes in, that means the season is lost. That's a pretty good indicator that the season is lost, and I would change my pick. But right now, I kind of got to go the Titans because there's nobody else. The Texans can be contenders, but I think they're a year or two away, and the Colts are even further away than that. In the West, I like... because it's the Chiefs and everybody else it's been. I got to go the Chargers because they bring in Quentin Johnston. You still have Austin Eckler. You bring in Kellen Moore, my old offensive coordinator for my Cowboys. You bring him in. We'll see if a change of scenery helps him. And Justin Herbert, I think, has all the tools to be a top 3 quarterback if he's not already one. If he's a fringe top 3 quarterback, he could easily be in the MVP conversation now with Kellen Moore. And then all that talent around him. And then you still have a good defense. You still have key playmakers all along the defense. So I like the Chargers. Shifting to the NFC. If it's not the Eagles, because they're the favorites, and the Cowboys would feel like another cop-out because they're kind of close to the Eagles and they're 3rd or 4th in the NFC pecking order. So that leaves the Giants or the Commanders. I kind of like the Commanders. I would say the Commanders over the Giants because of injury concerns to both Saquon and Darren Waller. And Daniel Jones had himself a pretty good season last year, but he only threw 15 touchdowns. With the Commanders, I'm curious. One of the players I'm most interested in this entire season is Sam Howell. I would love to see how Sam Howell plays with Scary Terry McLaurin, and he gets another year. They have a hellacious defense. This pass rush, with Montez Sweat and those guys. You've just got playmakers all over the place. And I really like what Washington has the potential to do. You also, an intangible thing, but it's very real. The stink of Dan Snyder gone. The specter of Dan Snyder no longer being the owner for Washington, I think can do wonders for the morale of this team. So I really like that aspect of it. Chase Young, Jonathan Allen on the defensive line, can wreak havoc on a defense. Daron Payne, Montez Sweat, that's a fearsome foursome right there. That's one of the best front fours in the National Football League. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, we'll see what he can do. I really like that kid from Penn State to give another weapon to Sam Howell. So I really like the Commanders as a possible dark horse in that division. In the North, I got to say Chicago Bears. The Bears with Justin Fields. You bring in DJ Moore. I just think they can really put it together. And the Lions, I know they're the favorites right now, but they're not the overwhelming favorites. And they're still the Detroit Lions. We need to see consistency from this team before we crown them the Kings of the North and that they're going to have a stranglehold on this division. I'm not ready to see it just yet. So I've got to go with the Bears in the North. I think they have all the pieces, and Justin Fields' development as a quarterback, I think he makes another stride this year. They get out of the basement of the North, and I think they maybe make a run at the division. In the South, my dark horse, this is actually my favorite to win the division, is the Atlanta Falcons. And I think they actually do it with 10 wins. I know the defense could use some work, but you're very possibly in the last year of the Desmond Ridder experiment. You don't know how he will perform, but you have all the weapons around him to make sure he succeeds. And if he doesn't, next year is a very loaded quarterback class. You're talking Caleb Williams, you're talking Michael Penix, Drake May, Quinn Ewers, other guys, Bo Nix. So the Falcons, if they don't make the playoffs or they feel like the Ridder experiment needs to be blown up, they can move on and either draft a quarterback or trade up in the draft and grab a quarterback because the rest of that offense is solid. It's solid. Kyle Pitts, you draft Bijan Robinson, who I think is going to get a ton of carries, who should probably be Offensive Rookie of the Year. Drake London, Cordero Patterson, you've just got weapons everywhere. And I know the defense could use some work, but with that offense and this division, you had an 8-9 Tampa Bay team with Tom Brady, mind you, win this division. So I can actually see a team win this division with 8 or 9 wins, and I think the Falcons actually get it done with 10. The last division. The 49ers are the runaways in the West, so I guess my dark horse would be Seattle. Could largely be in part to the 49ers, because if you have injury concerns with Brock Purdy, if he's not 100%, or if he regresses from last year and you got to rely on Sam Darnold, Darnold's probably not the guy to lead you through an entire season unscathed. And I really like what I saw from Geno Smith last year. I thought Seattle drafted well early, picking up JSN from Ohio State, a wide receiver. You brought in Witherspoon at corner. So I think Seattle made some key moves. Still the running game. You still got the passing threat. And if Geno plays, close to last year, they'll still be contenders. So those are my 8 dark horses for the division. Craft Beers and Sports. We come back to them. They asked me another question from Twitter. One team from each NFL conference who will be a disappointment. That's tough. A disappointment in the sense of where they were last year and where they could be. Not that they're going to miss the playoffs or anything, although as a Cowboy fan, I wish they would, but I don't see it happening. I think a team that won't live up to their standards, maybe not be a full-blown disappointment, but that won't live up to their standards, I think, is the Eagles. Because it's really hard to replicate the success you had last year. I think coming off the season you had last year, making the Super Bowl, you won 13 games, I believe. 13 or 14 games, if I'm not mistaken. You make the Super Bowl. I know you had a very good draft. Howie Roseman is, public enemy number 1 for all of the GMs in the league because of the outstanding job he does drafting. I just think it's really hard when the bar is set this high. The only place to go up is to win the Super Bowl. And, that leaves you all this space below to underachieve. Whether it's not winning the division or whether it's winning 11 or 12 games and having to play a wild card game on the road or something like that. That would be considered a disappointment by their standards. I'm not saying they're going to miss the playoffs. I still have them winning the division. But as far as replicating the success they had last year, and Jalen Hurts the year he had, I need to see it again from Jalen Hurts before I put him in the Patrick Mahomes class, the Joe Burrow class. He's a slight step below that. He could very easily make the leap this year, but I'm not ready to buy in just yet. And the bar set so high last year, I think it's really hard for them to reach that again this year. My biggest disappointment for the AFC, I'm going to go the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to go the Bills. I love Josh Allen. I love him. He seems like a good dude, a hell of a player. He does everything he can to help his team win. I just don't know if the Stephon Diggs stuff is going to carry over into the season. You had injury concerns with Von Miller and stuff like that. And but more to me, it's more of a testament in the division you're playing in, I think. You have the Jets, you have the Dolphins, both of which got very much improved. I don't know. And that's another case. The Bills, were up here. So it's another case of, well, how far could they possibly fall? And I think with, the injury concerns, the schedule, it could easily be, them slipping, not winning the division. Maybe they finish third in the division. This division, though, the AFC East, has a high probability to me of sending 3 teams to the playoffs. So the Bills could finish third and end up one of the wild card teams, but by comparison to the last 2 years, that would be a decrease. So not a huge disappointment, but like the Eagles, not living up to their standards. Matt Anderson, also on Twitter and X, is Justin Herbert a legit MVP candidate this year? Good question, Matt. I appreciate it. Keep the questions coming. And short answer, yes. Yes. He is absolutely an MVP candidate this year. And it wouldn't surprise me if he wins MVP because of what I mentioned earlier. You bring in Kellen Moore from Dallas as the offensive coordinator. You draft Quentin Johnston, the big frame wide receiver from TCU. You still have Austin Eckler, the Swiss Army knife at running back. Mike Williams, And you got playmakers who can help get you the ball back, like Derwin James. And that can really serve not just defensive purposes, but to help get you the ball back and to put up more points on the board. I think really this year it could be the first year they really challenge Kansas City in the West, because the Chiefs, outside of Kelsey, I don't know. I need to see it from the wide receivers. They're kind of unproven there. You've got a heck of an offensive line for the Chargers. You have Rashawn Slater, Corey Linsley, you know, Joey Bosa and Eric Kendricks, of course, on the defensive side. Khalil Mack, Derwin James, J.C. Jackson. You got a lot of playmakers on that side of the ball that can help swing games. And then that offense really doesn't need a lot of tinkering, and maybe Moore and Johnson were the last two pieces of the puzzle. So I do like Justin Herbert to be an MVP candidate, and it wouldn't surprise me if he won the whole thing, if he won NFL MVP. So that concludes our first ever mailbag. We got some questions. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the love, feedback, and support from all our social media channels. This will conclude our podcast for today. My name is Louie on Garage Game Day Sports. You can find us anywhere, pretty much anywhere. Anywhere you get your podcast. We're on TikTok, Garage Game Day Sports. You can also find us on YouTube, Twitter, X. Feel free to submit us questions. Next time we do a mailbag, we'll be sure to hit them all. This is the first ever time we do this, so this was a lot of fun. These questions just came in a few minutes ago, so I kind of had to just go on the fly. It was a really interesting episode, but we'll be back later in the week to discuss our college football. Week 0 thoughts, what we thought of week 0 and what's to come in week 1, our first full slate of college football action, and also, of course, the NFL just around the corner. We wrapped up the preseason. So very much looking forward to the start of NFL season. Football's here, guys. NFL and college football is in full swing from here till February. I cannot wait. So we'll be doing a ton of this in the upcoming weeks and months. So Louie with Garage Game Day Sports signing off. Have a great rest of your weekend.